Hi, I'm Shaul. Following the previous video that discussed unfair advantages in photography, a viewer shared the following message. I'm struggling myself with finding my own photographic voice. I constantly find myself switching between being an absolute gearhead who must have the best possible gear and shooting raw with the intent to do all the post-processing tweaking necessary to make amazing images and never actually achieving this pipe dream. And someone who wishes to engage in what you describe as being more organic and accepting of the small flaws in optics or even technical mistakes on my part, and even considering trying to shoot only JPEG straight out of camera. My desire is to shoot more street photography. By that I mean mostly candid human images. But I'm a naturally shy person, so I'm finding this very difficult. And with the desire to shoot straight out of camera JPEG, with zero post-processing, I find that I'm far too slow in getting the camera set up for each shot when the candid human street images genre really requires really fast shooting to avoid missing the opportunities. This is where I'm standing. I suppose the answer is to practice more and simply get faster with the setups, or give up on the idea of straight out of camera images. Those struggles are not only yours, I can assure you that. Let me address the issues raised here in two parts. This video will address the easy part, weaning of the gearheadedness syndrome. In the video that will follow, probably next week, I will talk more about candid photography of humans, how to approach it, how to do it. But let me start with the first part of the message. There are two opposing vectors in the camera community. One of them advocates perfection, technical perfection. That approach maintains that the data collected by the camera has to be as flawless, as perfect as possible. And then, after the fact, during post-processing, you can deteriorate the image, make your decisions and take the image in the direction you would like to make it more personal, more artistic. The opposite approach is that it doesn't really matter. Photography is art, first and foremost. And therefore, it's not about technicalities at all. It's about your personal vision. It's about conveying emotion. And that has nothing to do with how clean, how flawless the data collected is. It is not really hard to pick the ideal approach. Of course, the first one makes a lot of sense, while the other approach covers only a small set of cases in which the purpose of making a photograph is really artistic. However, the first approach, the technical approach, has a few problems. The first one is it is expensive because there is no real limit to the degree of cleanliness, of perfection you can achieve. The larger the sensor, the more resolution, the better, cleaner the optics you use, your technical results may improve, provided you are using a good technique to make those photographs. The other problem has to do with the optics specifically. Clean lenses create flat images. They might be flawless. They might be devoid of any obvious aberrations like fringing, like distortions and unpleasing rendering of surfaces that are out of focus. But you don't get that resemblance to what your eyes see in the real world. That is the advantage of different types of optics that are more traditionally designed, that maintain a natural contrast and therefore have a more lifelike rendering of curvatures, and they give you this three-dimensional look that it is very difficult to achieve this effect in post-processing by manipulating the image. Image processing can only go so far. You can correct the global contrast, correct the colors, the color balance in the images to make them more pleasing to the eye. But you cannot easily go the extra mile and imitate the rendering of a nice lens. You will not get that bite, that dimensionality that good optic can easily give you. That true-to-life rendering is especially important when making photographs of people, of humans, because we want to connect with those with the subjects of those photos. We want to easily be able to read their emotions, their state of mind. It is what we actually do as humans when interacting with another human being, even if it's only a rendering of one in a photograph. And the flat, sterile appearance of a human being staring at us from a portrait or an environmental portrait does not feel right to us. If that person does not look like someone real, someone with some weight, with some volume, with a real expression, we cannot easily connect with them. Being interested in candid shots of humans already tells me that you know which of the two approaches to photography to the aesthetics of photography is more appealing to you. The gearhead approach, the approach that maintains that our photograph should be as perfect as possible initially, is rather convincing. It makes sense. It is also represented by a lot of influencers who might be representing the industry's interests. It also makes sense that the more you spend on your gear financially, the more pleasing or the better your photographs will become. What you need is a way to convince yourself that this is nonsense, that what really matters in the specific genre you are interested in, at least, is not perfection. It's the right aesthetic that can connect with the viewer. To speed up the weaning process, I recommend making two purchases. The first one would be a nice dimensional lens. Now, most of those lenses are manual lenses. They don't have autofocus. They don't communicate with the camera in a seamless manner. You will probably need to adapt them to your modern mirrorless camera. But all this hassle is worth it, because the rendering of those lenses is quite different from anything you can get from a modern lens. The images you will be able to obtain are different. They look different. They resemble classic images that used to be made some decades ago. They might not look very good, very clean on a screen, especially if you blow them up and look at them at the pixel level. But it doesn't matter, because when you look at the whole image, you will easily notice their dimensionality, their character, resemblance to what you see with your naked eye. There are a lot of options to choose from. I would go with something like a Helios 44. It's a simple lens made in the millions. So it is not very expensive. Those lenses have a M42 mount, a screw mount. It's a 58mm lens, so it is quite useful, both for general photography from some distance and for portraits. And if you are interested in candid photos of humans, it will serve you well. Now, those M42 Helios 44 lenses have many versions. That lens was made between the 1960s, I think, and the early 1990s. It is famous for its peculiar swirly background when shot wide open. But even when you stop it down, it's a very nice lens, very poppy, very true to life. Shoot with that lens for a while. Get used to manually operating it. and you will enjoy it a lot. If you prefer a shorter or a longer focal length, there are lots and lots of options to choose from. I'm not going to get into these options here, but there are probably hundreds of 35, 28, 75 and 135 millimeter lenses. Any lens made before 1995 or so will give you those pleasing results, that poppiness. The second purchase I would recommend is a good photo printer. That might raise an eyebrow, but let me explain. An image does not become a photograph before it touches paper. A printed image has a different authority. It's a tangible object. It gives that image, that digital set of ones and zeros, a physical presence. It makes it immortal. More than everything, it is a finite version of that image. It has no elasticity. You cannot manipulate it further. Making a print forces you to make conscious decisions about what you want to that ethereal set of data to be represented like. When looking at a printed image, you have no choice but to evaluate that photograph in its entirety. You do not scrutinize tiny flaws, tiny imperfections with a loop. It doesn't call you to do that. When looking at an image on a computer screen, what you see is emitted light, and that accentuates tiny details, tiny flaws in the image. Grain is more prominent. Thin fringing looks more distracting. But when you transfer that image into analog form, when you print it on paper, all those imperfections, all those micro flaws are lost. Paper has a way to conceal grain, to conceal fringing. It has a low dynamic range. The contrast ratio of good photo paper is something like 1 to 80 or so, which gives you about 6 stops of dynamic range. That is less than what a JPEG image contains. And still, printed images like this one might look very appealing to the eye. And that hints that all that dynamic range the camera captures, all that cleanliness, the lack of flaws is an overkill. It doesn't really matter. This photo was made with an old Olympus 75 to 150 lens introduced in the 80s. And it is not a very good lens, not an expensive lens. It was one of the low-end lenses that Olympus made at the time. And still, it looks great because sharpness is not what determines the look of an image, whether it's pleasing to the eye or not. But paper does preserve the dimensionality of the optics. And in this case, that lens is truly nice and poppy, truly dimensional. You can see it in that photo of Swan. This photo was made with a more modern lens in 2015, I think. It was captured with a Panalaica 15mm f1.7. When looking at it closely, you can see it's not really sharp, but it's sharp enough. Sharpness does not determine the quality of an image. Let paper be the yardstick to the quality of your images. Printed images are the final destination of each photograph you make. Don't be confused by all those influencers, by manufacturers who try to convince you to buy expensive gear, because you can achieve very compelling results if you work properly, if you appreciate the right parameters that affect what a photograph looks like. Now, I have to warn you, printing is a complex field. It's a rabbit hole that might draw you in if you're not careful. I wouldn't put too much thought in it. Just choose a decent photo printer and let it do the work. Trust IPC profiles supplied with that printer. Use decent paper. It doesn't have to be very expensive, but it has to be photo paper. I recommend using a paper with luster finish, something like that has its own texture. But your mileage may vary. You might prefer the more contrasty glossy papers, or the matte papers that are better perhaps for low contrast black and white. Personally, I chose an Epson printer that contains an eco-tank system. That means that I can refill the tanks that are integral to that printer, and it keeps the printing costs lower. Choose a printer with around 5 or 6 different inks to give you a good richness of color. Such a printer would successfully imitate photosensitive paper that used to be the only option in the film days. I recommend printing quite a lot at a good size, something like an 8/10 inch size. That will look good. It's also a size you can hang on a wall. Every time you go out and shoot, choose a photo, maybe 2 or 3, and print them out. You don't have to do anything with those prints, but the process of printing itself, the compromises made, the reduction of possibilities from a digital image, especially a raw image that is shot at 14 bit, to something that is only 6 bit, will force you to make compromises. But art is destructive in nature. It involves a material touching another material, and that contact always involves degradation. That decision making in itself will make you a better photographer. You will be more focused when shooting. You will be able to anticipate what a printed version of that image will look like. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I hope it was helpful to you. Anyway, thank you for watching, and see you again soon.